this is really new. So thank you, Noah, for bringing this to our attention because it's really
You're
fresh.
welcome.
So Trump to hold Tuesday meeting on Iran military options. So U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to hold a situation room meeting with his top national security team on Tuesday to discuss options for military action, Axios reported, citing two U.S. officials. And again, remember, guys, we have to always be careful with Axios because they sometimes exaggerate or make stuff up. So we have to be careful with this. But that was it. That was a very short article. They posted it as an article, but it's only one paragraph. Okay, so yeah, go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, so I know we all keep thinking it's going to be happening very soon. Do we think it's going to be this week, or do we think it's going to be in a few weeks? The
Um,
action. I
so
know it's hard to tell. I know it's always hard to
yeah, it's
tell.
hard to tell, and I see Jeffrey put a two in the chat, so I'm interested to see what he has to say. But the people are saying that President Trump is going to attack the Islamic Republic soon. They point out to a lot of information coming out from Israel, suggesting that the people there are getting ready for an attack, and the people who suggest that no, it's going to take a while are saying that the President Trump's recent post saying calm before the storm means that we're in the calm period and the storm is yet to come. And also his latest post on, let me actually read let me actually look at the Truth Social post, the last two most important Truth Social posts by Donald Trump. Again, I really don't know. And honestly, I think that the whole point is not to be able to tell, right? So President Trump 3 hours ago posted, for Iran, the clock is ticking and they better get moving fast or there won't be anything left for them. Time is of the essence. President Donald J. Trump. So I don't know if this means that we're going to give them some time, or because it seems like when he says fast, that means that there's not much time. But the fact that he's giving them any time suggests that it's not going to happen within the next, I don't know, 24 hours or so, or not this week or so. And there was another important post that President Trump had where he was basically standing in a ship, like it was a meme, it was an AI meme, and he was standing on top of on a warship with the military commander behind him, saying the calm before the storm. So yeah, I don't know what this means, and I don't think we can really guess. I think the only person who knows when this is going to happen is President Trump. I don't think anybody, even within the administration, knows exactly when Trump is going to pull the trigger. But yeah, let's see what other people have to say.
Sketch is first, and then it's Jeff. Sketch.
Yes, I think part of this calculus will have to take in BRICS and the breakup of BRICS. BRICS is having a lot of problems. They just had a meeting where they couldn't even get a statement out. It seems like Iran was trying to blame the UAE, but India is in there too, and they just fired on one of their ships. So I'm sure India wasn't going to be on board with any broad statements that Iran was trying to get by. And I think that this calculus about how these other nations will either participate, assist, or not assist Iran, or where these leanings are going to go, are going to be very important, especially when you look at economic theory, because BRICS is basically, let me see, I got an explanation here. BRICS goal is to build an anti-Western power bloc, weaken US-led finance, push global South influence, use local currencies, and reform global institutions. Right? They're basically China, Russia, Iran. That's kind of like some of the people that are in there, but they're basically falling apart because this is they're united in their hate and opposition of something. They're not united in having a lot in common, right? So when you just have one goal that is like going against this thing, but you don't have other underlying things that unite you, it's a very brittle framework for unity. And BRICS has been having a lot of problems. One of them is this. I think the BRICS nations have less unity, and some of them are starting to favor operations with the USA, maybe in assistance. And I think there's also talks. I don't know if Dom talked about this earlier, that there's some talks with getting is real. I hope he puts a 2 in. I think he was talking about this earlier about us having a base there, which would let us park jets there. I think that we were talking something about that. That would also be something that we would take into calculus, a reason to have this meeting and put all of these things into perspective. If we're going to discuss this, that's something I would think of.
Thank you, Sketch. Jeffrey.
So all good points. A lot of the indicators that we talked about yesterday are going up. So you have 6 that kind of jump out at me. First is President Trump's rhetoric is the sharpest yet. Clock is ticking. Full destruction is coming. He went pretty hard today. He also, I mean, you have what Armin had stated. He kind of, cited a couple of those things. You have the regime remnants are issuing direct threats of a surprising new strategy, which means they keep testing U.S. resolve, which is not a good idea for them. They don't want to meet 72 goats. The U.S. lawmakers are signaling that, it's very clear negotiations have quote unquote hit a wall. The United States needs to eliminate the remaining regime. As far as Pentagon readiness and strike planning leaks, that again, fresh confirmations, that both carrier strike groups and or B-52 bombers are fully positioned for immediate kinetic ops. Reports are starting to circulate around about finalizing options, which is why he's doing the meeting. You have the special forces raids, all the rest of that. You have the ongoing Hormuz reconstruction and blockade drama that's going on. So, the Mullah regime is like, oh my God, we've deployed our midget subs and we're gonna, they keep poking and prodding. And Donald's getting sick of that shit. Here's the other one. So a lot of the open intelligence assessments, particularly on aerial tankers and refuelers, they in the past 24 hours show a massive tanker surge. Over a dozen KC-135s and KC-46s are orbiting the Gulf right now. Some are declaring emergencies and vanishing off radar. That's classic prep for extended bombing runs of whatever's left of the regime. So what do I think? I think it's going to be, looking at those indicators, I can say with a very high degree of human certainty, there's a very high degree of probability that kinetic operations are going to resume very quickly. It will be days, not weeks. Probably sometime this upcoming week is where most of it kind of shakes out. And if it is and they go in the maximalist approach, the regime's going to be dead in 5 days.
And like I said, if that happens, Jeff, I'll buy you lunch. Daniel Jones. Oh, I'm sorry. Armin wanted to respond.
Okay. By the way, in the YouTube chat, people were talking about the effect of the Islamic Republic just the drone attack on UAE's nuclear plant. That was a big deal. So Mythic Mix is wondering if that's going to impact USA responding. I think it obviously has some influence. That's like, it's getting ridiculous how much this. I mean, this is an attack on a nuclear plant. So that is a big deal. But let me actually go through the list of the reasons people are giving for why the attack is imminent and why the attack is not against the attack being this week or in a few days. So let me actually do the against one first. So the first reason people give that the attack is not close, US attack on the Islamic Republic is not close, is backchannel negotiations have not completely collapsed. Pakistan's interior minister arrived in Tehran over the weekend to facilitate emergency peace talks and salvage a diplomatic resolution between US and Iranian negotiators. So that's the one. And then there's hopes for a diplomatic breakthrough. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright stated over the weekend that a diplomatic agreement could still emerge in the next few days. He emphasized that a negotiated settlement remains the heavily preferred option to avoid the massive economic fallout of forcing open the blockaded Strait of Hormuz militarily. And then lastly, the high risk of severe retaliation. Military and intelligence assessments published over the weekend revealed that Iran remains highly resilient. Tehran has successfully restored operational access to 30 of its 33 missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz and still retains 70% of its pre-war missile stockpile, meaning an immediate US strike could trigger a catastrophic counteroffensive. So these are the arguments people say give against, but here are the arguments for an attack happening very soon. Number one is President Trump's direct ultimatum. On Sunday, May 17th, basically just recently, President Trump issued a fierce warning on Truth Social, stating that for Iran, the clock is ticking and they must act fast or there won't be anything left of them. This signals that Washington's patience with stalled negotiation has run out. So that's number one. Then we have scheduled military meetings. Behind the scenes, U.S. officials confirmed on Sunday that Trump has ordered a high-level situation room. This is what Noah just, by the way, this just happened. So Noah just brought this to our attention. High-level situation room meeting with top national security advisors for Tuesday, May 19th, specifically deliberate immediate military action options. And then we have fresh regional escalation. Tensions spiked sharply on Sunday after a drone. Oh, this is what Mythic was bringing up in the YouTube chat. Tensions spiked sharply on Sunday after a drone strike hit a generator outside a nuclear power plant in Abu Dhabi, and an action the UAE condemned as a dangerous escalation. Concurrently, Iran-backed Hezbollah fired roughly 200 projectiles over the weekend, severely fracturing the fragile regional ceasefire. One thing about BRICS, when we talk about BRICS, BRICS was never, I never took BRICS ever seriously. You have India and China in there. These are like military, these are military adversaries in the same group. Like, what the hell? How is that going to work out? And also, there's no political ideology or goal or anything that binds these countries together. So I never took BRICS seriously. Maybe I don't know, but yeah. Okay.
All right, Jeff, you're next to respond again, and then we have Kat and Guy. Go ahead.
Real quick, so Vlad, like the Mullah remnants striking a civilian nuclear power plant with drones constitutes an unacceptable risk, which is almost assuredly underwriting the current President Trump's administration in their calculating what they need to do. I would contend it just shows that the regime remnants have to die. And that's where that has to go. They'll have regime apologists say, but you struck Fordo Isfahan. Not the same thing, dickhead. Not the same thing. You have a civilian power plant, right, that doesn't make nuclear weapons, is not buried underground. It did not have like enriched uranium between 60 and 90%. And Fordo Isfahan and Natanz very much illegally enriching uranium beyond 60 to 90%, very much a nuclear weapons facility, not the same shit. Just saying, like, clearly that strike serves to underwrite why finally, further underwrite why the Mullah regime has to go, or the regime remnants have to go.
Okay, thank you. Kat, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, what Jeffrey said actually really surprised me because that's exactly what I saw. And I'm not like even looking all the time. I had like this stupid hobby of like looking sometimes, and I saw a tanker vanishing after putting a SOS signal in the Persian Gulf. And I saw, guys, yesterday night, they had like a row of like 12 tankers going one after another, 12, in like this line from Ramstein to the Persian Gulf. Actually, it was back, which was kind of confusing because it can also be seen like they're going away. And people said it, but I don't believe it because, first of all, people are like a little of faith. And also, it can be a trick. But they're actually, sometimes you see a lot, and sometimes they're like running away altogether. Crazy stuff. But I see a lot of activity from the countries in the Persian Gulf. Iraq is crazy. You have so many US aircraft on the border of Iran.
True.
Crazy. And many more. I don't know. I didn't plan on saying it, so I don't remember every detail. But yeah, crazy stuff. But also, I was wondering, why did they all vanish in the last couple of hours? Because in the morning, everything was lit. It was crazy.
That's actually
I know, I'm
very,
too excited.
yeah. No, but
I
thank you,
know.
thank you, Kat, for keeping an eye on the movements in the area. That's always very helpful.
I'll
Also, I
give
just
it a week and I will have enough of it.
yeah, just wanted to
This
also
hobby.
thank Dom. Dom Dividend just gave us a super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dom. Appreciate that. Got our first super chat for the day on this stream. Okay, who's next?
Guy is next to respond, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
One thing I'm not getting, and maybe some of y'all can enlighten me. So, like, I saw Trump's truth today about clock is ticking. You should change however you phrase it. But essentially, the underlying message was take the deal now before it's too late. And my reaction was just groaning because I don't think rhetorically it still serves him to take that route for anyone. Let's say you've decided to bomb them. They have given you all the excuses you need. It's even for your own supporters. This, to me, is in America. Let's say isolationists. This is starting to look like being weak, and no matter what happens, it's going to stay the way it looks. Because okay, well, I begged and they didn't come to the table, so I had to strike them. It's already at that point where enough. They don't want the deal, and I don't see any upside to the messaging anyway, other than actually saying please make the deal. And there was a regime IRGC linked media, this is Iran International, says US sets 5 conditions on Iran proposals, and one of those was that they wouldn't pay reparations, but they would unfreeze frozen funds, which is essentially paying reparations. Now I know we can't trust IRGC linked media, but I have seen this type of information floating in from several different directions, some of them more reliable than others. And I'm just wondering, maybe he does really want a deal and is willing to pay $20 billion to get it. What do you think?
Okay, I do believe President Trump does really want a deal. I do believe that. Okay, the thing is that the type of the deal that he wants is going to crush the Islamic Republic.
Even
And
if they get 20 billion?
I haven't seen anywhere him wanting to give them 20 billion. Is your source Farce News? Because that's the what are you getting?
No, obviously I wouldn't. IRG Central would not be a reliable source for me. No, it was other sources that are usually more trustworthy. Unfortunately, I can't remember them off the top of my head.
This would be headlines. This would be giant news everywhere if there was any indication that, like, I haven't seen that. Okay,
I've seen it in I-24 news, but it was a while ago, so I can try pulling it up. But
I mean, I remember at one point people suggesting that Axios, like people were quoting Axios, that's what President Trump wanted to do, and then the White House and President Trump came out and denied it, right? So I-24 sometimes like quotes Axios, right? And Axios is not really reliable these days. I don't know if they were ever reliable, but also see this other comparison of U.S. demands and the Islamic Republic demands coming out, the 5 points of United States and 5 points of the Islamic Republic, and that the U.S. demands that this is also something that is a lot more flexible from the U.S. side. But if you look at this is circulating everywhere, and if you look at every single one of them, the source of them is Farce News, and as you know, Farce News is the IRGC, right? The two most important media of IRGC is Tasnim and Farce News, right? So this is what people are quoting. And by the way, guys, I see the super chats. I'm going to read them soon and respond to them. But let me tell you what these are. So the U.S. demands from it says Iran, meaning the Islamic Republic. So these are the 5 that they're saying is the new U.S. demands. And we have to see if they confirm this or not. But 1, no compensation or damages paid to Iran. So this contradicts the idea, even if we believe Farce News, which we won't, this, because Fars News is trying to show that United States is getting closer to the Islamic Republic position. So not even Fars News is suggesting that there will be any compensation by United States, right? So no compensation or damages paid to Iran. 1. 2, Iran transfers 400 kilograms of uranium to the United States. It's interesting that it says 400 kilograms instead of 440 kilograms, because the total is 440, not 400. And then it says only one nuclear facility allowed to remain active. So this is crazy. This suggests that the Americans' new position is that the Islamic Republic gets to have a nuclear facility, but only one. Again, I'm seeing this being shared everywhere, and the only source is Fars News, and Fars News is IRGC. So even Fars News trying to show the United States being more flexible, they're showing it in number 3, only one nuclear facility allowed to remain active, not in the compensation segment. Okay, so that's number 3. 4, none of Iran's frozen assets released, so no compensation and no release of frozen assets. 5, ceasefire conditional on negotiations not guaranteed. So those are the 5 U.S. demands from the Islamic Republic according to IRGC. And the Islamic Republic 5 conditions are full ceasefire on all fronts, especially Lebanon. For some goddamn reason, especially Lebanon all the time, which again shows that their priority is Lebanon rather than the country that they're supposed to be ruling over. So full ceasefire on all fronts, especially Lebanon, 1. 2, lifting of all anti-Iranian sanctions, their words, not mine. 3, release of frozen Iranian assets. 4, compensation for war damages. 5, and this is the wording here, I'll tell you what this means. 5, recognition of Iran's sovereignty of the Strait of Hormuz, meaning that they get to control the Strait of Hormuz forever and collect tolls and everything. So those are the 5 conditions. So I don't believe this unless something comes out and we realize that this is true, okay? Because the source, obviously, I'm not going to believe them. But even if it was true, they're still so far away. Even if for some goddamn, like even from some crazy reason, President Trump has come and said the new position is that the Islamic Republic can't enrich uranium for 20 years instead of forever. And, or maybe even worse, that they get to have one nuclear facility remain active. That's worse than, basically this suggests that this would be worse than the JCPOA. This would be worse than the Obama deal if this was the case, which this is why it's impossible to believe, right? But even if this was the case, the Islamic Republic even agreeing to this would destroy the legitimacy in the minds of their regime supporters. They will lose all credibility and legitimacy among their own followers, even if they agree to this. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Sketch is first to respond, and then Jose, and then do you want to stay on this topic or should we move on after that, Armin? I think we should move on.
Okay, well, you're the mod, so we'll follow your...
Yeah, so let's have Sketch and Jose respond, and then we'll move on. Go ahead, Sketch.
On Trump, I don't think Trump is talking to his base. I don't think Trump is talking to anyone in America. I don't think he's even talking to the Europeans or anyone. I think he's talking to the IRGC. Yeah, your last chance to make a deal, to get them think there's some kind of deal on the table. I don't think there is a deal on the table that IRGC would accept. I think, like Armin said, they're too far apart. But you have this, sometimes people think Trump is doing things for their base that would irritate their base. Guy said he's frustrated. I guarantee you, Americans just want this over with, and not over with we leave, over with we leave with the win. All right, his base doesn't want him wishy-washy 20 last chances. I don't believe in 20 last chances. You get one last chance, you don't get 20. So we don't like this. Like, as a conservative, I don't like it. There's some extreme in the far right that are anti-Israel. That is not most conservatives. That is a minority of conservatives. just like happens on the left. Actually, I think the left has a little bit more crazies, but it's not the majority of conservatives that believe this, just like it's not the majority of liberals, what we call liberals in America, that believe in the the extreme stuff. Most conservatives want this to be over. They don't hate Iran, they don't hate Israel, and they want this war over with a win. They want this regime change. They don't want the IRGC in there anymore. They're kind of sick of this. And I think this messaging is like a trick on Iran. I don't think it's really about a message to anyone else.
Okay, thank you. Jose.
I just want to remind everyone that the points that the our IRGC negotiators from the very beginning have never changed except the amount has gone up. Not once. They have never compromised or shown desire to compromise. What Sketch was talking about, the Republican base, that has been pissing us off from the beginning. They're not willing to negotiate at all. They're just wasting time. Fine. That's what the Republican base is getting tired of. Trump will probably end up getting impeached by the Republicans, not the Democrats, if he so much as betrays the trust that he's been asking us to show him. Okay? And that's what I wanted to say there. You go through it, you finish it, one way or another. Personally, he might be setting up this meeting for Tuesday, but where did it come out? Axios. So do I believe it? Not a bit in hell. Second, Thursday, the Senate tried to stop Trump on any further Iranian action and lost, thanks to Senator Fetterman, who made it a 58-49 vote without the vice president voting. Okay, that was an attempt on the Wars Powers Act to stop it. It failed miserably. And that's with 3 Republicans jumping to the Democratic side. Okay, so I think this might be a little about 5D chess again, and the attack will be tonight or tomorrow, long before Tuesday. That's all.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's go.
Thank you. I know. Let's go. Finish it. Armin, you wanted to read some super chats?
Yeah, just 3 super chats. We got 4 super chats today, guys. Thank you so much. Sarah is saying, Armin, when I imagine the great liberation, oh, I get so emotional on liberation of Iran. She's saying, have you imagined it and played it in your mind too? Yep. Nara, have you? Yes. What
For
a
years
moment
we have. For years.
for years. Yes. What a moment it will be. The one moment that I have been imagining in my mind over and over again is Iranians all around the world, inside Iran, outside of Iran, glued to TVs, their phones, or watching Prince Reza Pahlavi's plane, just tracking it, moving from United States to Tehran. Everybody, like the cameras in Tehran in the airport, just waiting for his plane to land. Everybody there, the people at the crowds at the airport, us watching, tracking the plane, saying he's 1 hour away, 30 minutes away from Tehran. He landed in Tehran, the door opening, him stepping foot inside Iran. That's the moment that I'm imagining. The entire crowd, the people from all over Iran who are going to be traveling to Tehran to see this historic moment, to watch Pahlavi come back to Iran. That's the time. That's what I've imagined in my mind over and over again. So, Sarah, thank you so much for that. Oh my God, that gave me goosebumps. Okay. Jedi in the chat is saying those Noah and Jeffrey guys seem smart. Okay, Noah, Jeffrey, you guys, Jedi thinks you're smart. Thank you, Jedi, for the super chat. And we have Dominic saying, I convinced my bobcat to side with us, Javid Shah. Okay. Well, that's some really impressive debate skills. And thank you for the super chats.